It has been a very long day. School started up again after Easter weekend, and I am totally spent. I feel like I don't even have any voice left. But I told my sister that I would do my best to read a chapter in the book that I was writing to entertain my parents while they were in quarantine. It was a pre release that I put out in Kindle form before I'm doing the hard copy. It's about half of the book in pre release. There's another 15 to 16 chapters. It's called Crazy Eight's Stories of Survival because I have a family of 8. And so here it is after a very long day. The funny thing about writing a book is it doesn't actually qualify you to read it. I'm not much for narration. This is not very practiced. And it's my policy to use different names for the people in my family, just for my sister. Don't be surprised when the names are different. Okay, so this chapter is entitled Conversation After a Family Dinner. And really quickly, let me just say culturally, if you come from like Scandinavian or Germanic descent, this is not going to be your cup of tea. This is my father speaking, and he's Middle Eastern, and it's a very kind of open, straightforward, plain talking culture. And they talk about things Northern cultures don't talk about. Then there's my mother, on the other hand, who's Victorian, and they definitely didn't talk about anything like my father decided to talk about in this exchange. So, conversation after a family dinner. I sat on the floor with my 10-month-old son in my lap. My sister and brother were over and had brought my parents, both in their mid-80s. My father looked at me as I modestly pulled my shirt over my son's head so I could nurse him without flashing everybody. My father, with some concern, referring to my son's 2 bottom teeth, asked, "River, won't his teeth hurt your bosoms?" My younger sister started to laugh. I was at a loss of what to say. It's not every day that my dad refers to my bosoms. Since we were watching family videos, I thought I'd go unnoticed as I nursed Duke. I stammered a little and said, "Well, I got used to it." I toughened up. "Yes," my father replied, "but isn't he old enough that you should stop feeding him like this now?" "Reginald, stop talking about it. You're making her uncomfortable, knowing that her father is watching her nurse her baby." "It's fine, Mom," I said, pretty sure my shirt was covering everything. Really, really hoping as I write this that my shirt kept everything covered. Here my younger sister chimed in, stopping my parents' side argument. "Actually, Dad, they've done studies that show that children who nurse for at least a year, at least, have fewer problems with all kinds of health issues when they get older, like emphysema." And she went on listing different things. "And allergies," I broke in. "Don't worry, Dad. If he bites me, I just sock him in the nose," I said, punching my fist playfully into the air. Everybody busted up laughing. This is the benefit of humor. The conversation ended with a laugh. So that was just a short little conversation, and that was a pretty common interaction, I think, between my parents. My father being plain spoken and Middle Eastern, and my mother being Victorian and uptight. I thought I would read just a little bit of the first chapter, and then I will call it quits. It's called, What Kind of Child Were You? One of the topics of interest in a very fruitful internet search is which personalities are compatible? Which personalities attract one another? What personality type am I? As part of getting to know one another, my husband Anders and I talk about what we were like when we were young. Children seem a lot more straightforward in how they classify one another. This kid is the biter, the talker, the crier, the attention hog, the snob. So many types of children, ready to grow and branch out into more complex personalities in adulthood. We came to the conclusion we may not have been compatible as children. Mom, the survivor. If I wanted something, I figured out how to get it, like my sister's root beer flavored chapstick. I waited until she had left for school and then found it in her room, shoved in a sock drawer. You'd think that after the first waxy bite, I'd have figured out that it didn't taste like root beer, but bite after bite, I just kept on hoping. When she came home, I learned a hard lesson in ownership. If it's not yours, don't take it. I wanted gum. I never had money to buy my own, and as far as I knew, ABC gum was a brand like Hubba Bubba. I still remember the day my siblings laughingly told me that ABC gum meant that it had already been chewed. I couldn't figure out why they were laughing or why the gum was undesirable, but since the joke was up, they stopped offering to give me ABC gum. What's a girl to do? I wanted gum. I still remember how terribly long it took to pick enough gum off the sidewalk that it was worth chewing. You probably don't know this, but the cool thing about sidewalk gum is that once you pick the black top off, you can see the true gum color underneath. That was exciting. I learned to wait for the larger wads because when I tried to rehab the small wads of sidewalk gum, the ratio of grit to gum made it too unpleasant to chew. Looking back, I'm glad I didn't have any permanent teeth to chip and crack on those pebbles. The charm of sidewalk gum didn't last much longer than it did for ABC gum. My friend's mother spotted me chewing gum and couldn't figure out where I had gotten it from, so I told her. Such drama. I came by it fair and square, but she had to get all judgy. Well, that was the end of sidewalk gum for me. Do you want to come and read it?
Sure.
All right. So I have a guest reader. Yay!
Hi.
This is my husband. All right. So he's going to read his section. Dad, the nerd. In addition to being a nerd, Anders was a Star Trek fan. He and I argue about him being a Trekkie versus a Trekker. I say, if you know when William Shatner was born, then you have to be classified as a Trekkie, no matter how interested you were in the mechanics of the warp drive. At any rate, when I asked him to describe himself as a child, this is what Anders came up with. I'll leave it to the reader to imagine how compatible we are as adults.
Captain's log, stardate 1991. I've been put into a transport with an alien, disguised as my uncle. His children have great physical prowess, vastly superior to my own, often seen in primitive beings from hunter-gatherer societies. The landscape is strange, desert as far as I can see, light years from my home. There is no intelligent conversation. Do we speak the same language? The uncle figure rules with a massive ego that can be wielded like a club. On arriving home, my uncle looks my father in the face and discreetly says, "Yada weird chaler." I don't speak Cro-Magnonese. What does it mean? With the airing of Amadeus on network television, I knew just what I wanted to be on Halloween. I wore a white wig with a long button coat and white tube socks. We went to a church Halloween party, and everywhere I went, I fielded the same questions. Are you George Washington? Are you Ben Franklin? In my self-righteous 8-year-old indignation, I would correct my elders. No! I'm Mozart! At one of these outbursts, my mother would grab my hand and hurry through the vampires, knights, and pirates to move on to the next room. That was the most impolite behavior I remember getting away with. Oh, to be a misunderstood 8-year-old classical music lover.
That's pretty good for a cold reading, babe. I hope that makes you happy. My sister, who requested that. Yeah, I'm not going to read any more of that. It's been a super, super long 2 weeks. So I am going to sign off and say I love you. And that sounds weird, going out to an entire YouTube audience. Let me retry this. To my sisters, I love you. To everybody else, have a fabulous night. This is Duke's bottle. His dad didn't care that he got his son a pink bottle. Blah, blah, blah. Stop. Ba, 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 ba. God. I'm too tired for this. That's like really hard. It's really hard. Oh. I've had worse. You guys, I buy gum now.